The stars had always called to humanity. Since the first time ancient people looked up at the night sky, they wondered what was out there. By the year 2087, humans had built bases on the Moon and Mars, sent probes to the far reaches of the solar system, and dreamed of one day traveling to distant stars. No one expected the stars to come to them first. No one expected those stars to bring terror. The morning Captain Alan West took command of the USS Horizon was supposed to be the proudest day of his life. The Horizon was Earth's most advanced spacecraft, built to test a new propulsion system that might someday take humans beyond their solar system. West stood tall on the bridge, his blue uniform freshly pressed, his brown hair neatly combed. "Systems check complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Samantha Miller from her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "All systems normal." West nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Prepare for our first test run to Jupiter's orbit." The crew of 20 worked with focused energy. They were the best Earth had to offer, scientists and soldiers chosen from every nation. Their mission was peaceful exploration, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. They never reached Jupiter. The alert came when they passed the orbit of Mars. Something was entering the solar system from the outer darkness. Something large, and moving fast. "Unknown object detected," called out Officer Henry Liu. "Size estimate puts it at 3 times larger than our vessel. It's changing course, sir. It's heading straight for us." West leaned forward in his command chair. "Attempt communication on all frequencies. Let them know we're peaceful explorers." For 3 hours, the Horizon sent messages of peace in every language and mathematical formula humans had developed to possibly communicate with alien life. They received no response. The object grew closer, revealing itself as a sleek, dark ship with strange markings along its hull. It moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its size. Still no response. "To our signals, Captain," Miller reported. The worry in her voice was clear. "Keep trying," West ordered, "and bring us to a full stop. We don't want them to think we're making aggressive movements." The strange ship slowed as it approached, coming to a stop just 2 kilometers from the horizon. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. The crew held their breath, staring at the view screens. Then a beam of intense red light shot from the alien vessel, slicing through the Horizon's lower decks. "We're hit!" shouted Miller as the ship shuddered violently. "Hull breach on decks 3 and 4. Return fire," West commanded, but Chief Engineer Greg Foster shook his head. "Our weapon systems aren't designed for combat, sir. They're research tools. We can't even scratch their hull." The alien ship fired again. This time the beam cut through the Horizon's engines. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems failed, one after another. "Evacuation order," West said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "All hands to escape pods. Now." As the crew rushed to the escape pods, West made a difficult choice. "Lieutenant Miller, you need to take the main escape pod back to Earth. Someone has to warn them about what's happening here." Miller shook her head. "I won't leave you, sir." "That's an order, Lieutenant," West said firmly. "Earth needs to know what we're facing. I'll stay with the ship as long as possible to gather data and buy time for the other pods." The alien vessel continued its attack as the escape pods launched. One by one, the small pods were targeted and destroyed. Only Miller's pod, equipped with experimental stealth technology, managed to slip away toward Earth. West watched from the failing bridge as Miller's pod disappeared into the darkness of space. Then he turned to face the view screen and the alien ship that had attacked without warning or reason. "Let's see what we can learn about you before the end," he whispered as he worked to record as much data as possible. The Horizon's final moments were captured in West's last transmission, a detailed scan of the alien vessel, and a message. "They came without warning. They attacked without provocation. Earth must prepare." Then the Horizon was gone, destroyed in a final blast that scattered its remains across space. Miller's journey back to Earth took 17 days. Her pod's life support systems were failing by the time Earth's defense satellites detected her approach. A rescue ship brought her to the International Space Station, where she delivered Captain West's final message and her own eyewitness account. Within hours, the leaders of Earth's nations gathered in an emergency session of the United Nations. The room was filled with fear as Miller's report was presented. We have identified the alien species based on ancient warning messages found in deep space transmissions we've been studying, announced Dr. Rita Johnson, head of xenolinguistics at the Global Space Agency. They call themselves the Draconians. According to what we've translated, they have conquered hundreds of worlds across our galaxy. No civilization has successfully resisted them. Panic spread through the assembly until Frank Dawson, the American representative, stood up. Dawson was not a tall man, but his presence commanded attention. His voice was calm but determined as he addressed the gathering. Throughout human history, we have faced threats that seemed unstoppable. Plagues, natural disasters, wars that spanned continents. Each time we survived, we adapted. We fought back. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each representative. Yes, these Draconians have conquered other worlds, but they have never faced humans before. The Brazilian representative spoke up. What you're suggesting is madness. Their technology is far beyond ours. How can we possibly fight them? Together, Dawson replied simply. For the first time in our history, humanity must stand truly united. We have 6 months before their main fleet arrives, according to Dr. Johnson's translations. 6 months to prepare for the greatest fight in human history. By the end of the day, the Earth Defense Alliance was formed. Every nation pledged resources and personnel to the cause. Old enemies became allies in the face of this new threat from the stars. In the following weeks, scientists began studying the data West had sent back. Military leaders from around the world gathered to develop strategies against an enemy they barely understood. And in every city on Earth, recruitment centers opened as millions of volunteers stepped forward to defend their planet. Lieutenant Miller, promoted to commander for her courage, became the public face of the resistance. Her speeches inspired hope in the darkest time humanity had ever faced. Captain West's last act was to give us a chance, she told a crowd in New York. He died so that Earth might live. We won't waste his sacrifice. The Draconians think they know what to expect from us. They think we'll surrender like all the others. Before us. She paused, her eyes burning with determination. They're wrong. We are humanity, and we will fight back. The ruins of the Draconian scout ship floated in Earth orbit, surrounded by research vessels. It had been 3 months since the attack on the USS Horizon, and humanity was using every second to prepare for war. Dr. Olivia Russell wiped sweat from her forehead as she carefully examined a piece of alien technology. The lab inside the International Space Station was cramped but secure. For weeks, she had been studying the shield systems recovered from the Draconian wreckage. The scout ship had been damaged during its return to report on Earth, and a hastily assembled defense force had managed to destroy it. The victory had been costly. 3 human ships lost, but the wreckage was proving valuable. There's something here, Olivia muttered, adjusting her glasses as she watched energy patterns flow across her screen. Some kind of rhythm to the shield, ondulation. Next to her, Dr. Kevin Park nodded. I see it too. Every 73 seconds, there's a slight drop in the shield's strength. It's tiny, but it's consistent. Olivia's eyes widened. If we could time our attacks to hit at exactly that moment, we could punch through their defenses, Kevin finished. He looked at Olivia with new hope in his eyes. We need to tell Director Dawson immediately. Far below, at the Earth Defense Alliance headquarters in Geneva, Director Frank Dawson was meeting with Colonel Jack Peterson, the newly appointed commander of Earth's combined military forces. Peterson was a veteran of the last global conflict, with a reputation for unconventional tactics that won battles against superior forces. Our biggest problem is that we're fighting with sticks against lasers, Peterson said, pointing to the holographic display of a Draconian battleship. Everything we've learned suggests their technology is at least a century ahead of ours. Dawson nodded grimly. Then we need to find ways to fight that don't rely on matching their technology. Peterson smiled for the first time in days. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, sir. The Draconians have conquered countless worlds, but from what we've gathered, most of those species surrendered after the first attack. None of them had our history of warfare. What are you suggesting, Colonel? Humanity has been fighting itself for thousands of years. It's terrible, but it means we understand war in ways the Draconians might not expect. They rely on overwhelming force and fear. We need to show them that humans don't scare easily. Peterson walked to a wall map of the solar system. We can't defend Earth directly, not against their fleet, but we can make them fight for every inch of space from the edge of our system inward. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent call from the space station. Dr. Russell's face appeared on the main screen, excitement clear in her expression. Director Dawson, we found something. A weakness in the Draconian shield system. It's small, but it's real. As Russell explained her discovery, Peterson's mind was already racing with possibilities. When the call ended, he turned to Dawson. This changes everything. We can't match their firepower, but we don't need to. We just need to hit them at exactly the right moment. Dawson leaned back in his chair. Can we build weapons that can exploit this weakness? Not conventional ones, no, Peterson admitted. But I have some ideas that might work. Over the next weeks, the Earth Defense Alliance worked around the clock. Mining operations on the moon were converted to build new types of ships and weapons. Engineers and scientists from every nation collaborated on designs that would take advantage of the Draconian shield weakness. Commander Samantha Miller, now recovered from her ordeal, was assigned to train pilots for the new fighter craft being developed. The sleek small ships were designed for speed and maneuverability rather than direct combat power. These aren't dogfighters, she explained to the gathered pilots in the lunar base. These are precision strike vessels. Your job will be to hit the enemy shields at exactly the moment they're weakest, then get out before they can respond. Young pilot raised his hand. Commander, what if they adapt? What if they fix this shield weakness? Miller nodded, appreciating the question. That's why we're preparing multiple strategies. This is just one approach. Colonel Peterson is developing others that don't rely on technology at all. At that moment, Peterson was on Mars, overseeing the preparation of the colony there. Unlike Earth, Mars couldn't be evacuated. Its 5 million colonists would be the first humans to face the Draconian invasion. We're not going to try to hold the planet, Peterson explained to Major Paul Bennett, the Mars Defense Force commander. That would be suicide. Instead, we're going to make Mars the perfect trap. The plan was audacious. Using the extensive tunnel systems already built by the colonists, they would appear to abandon the surface while actually preparing for a massive counterattack. The Draconians would be lured into believing they had an easy victory. This goes against everything I was taught about defensive warfare, Bennett said, studying the plans. Peterson smiled grimly. That's the point. The Draconians have conquered hundreds of worlds by following the same playbook. They expect us to either surrender or mount a conventional defense. They don't expect us to think like humans. As the preparations continued, a message arrived from the deep space monitoring stations. The Draconian fleet had been detected entering the outer solar system. Humanity had less than 2 weeks before the invasion began. Director Dawson called an emergency broadcast to address the people of Earth. His face was solemn but determined as he spoke to billions of viewers. For all of human history, we have looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the answer, and it has come in the form of a threat unlike any we have faced before. The Draconians believe we will be an easy conquest, another species to add to their empire of fear. He paused, his expression hardening. They are wrong. Humans have never bowed to tyrants. We have never surrendered in the face of impossible odds. Throughout our history, when faced with extinction, we have always chosen to fight. Images appeared beside him. The new fleet of Earth ships, the defenses being prepared, the men and women training to face the enemy. We may not have the technology of our enemy. We may not have centuries of space warfare experience. But we have something the Draconians have never encountered: the indomitable human spirit. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. The broadcast ended with a simple message: stand together, stay strong, humanity will prevail. As the Draconian fleet approached Mars, Colonel Peterson arrived on the front line to oversee the defense personally. Commander Miller led the fighter squadrons into position behind Phobos, Mars' largest moon, which had been partially demolished to create a debris field for cover. Major Bennett and his forces retreated into the vast tunnel networks beneath the Martian surface, leaving behind carefully planned bait for the invaders. The trap was set. Now they would see if humanity's gamble would pay off against an enemy that had never known defeat. The Draconian fleet arrived at Mars with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. Their massive battleships moved into orbit around the red planet, dark shapes against the stars. There were 12 main vessels, each larger than anything humans had ever built, accompanied by hundreds of smaller craft. From her position behind the ruins of Phobos, Commander Samantha Miller watched through her fighter's view screen. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart raced in her chest. "All squadrons maintain position," she said into her communication system. "Remember your training. Wait for the signal." The first wave of Draconian landing ships descended toward the Martian surface. They met no resistance. As Colonel Peterson had planned, the surface installations appeared abandoned. The Draconians, following their standard conquest procedure, began to establish a base of operations in the Valles Marineris settlement. On the bridge of the lead Draconian battleship, Commander Kralthax observed the operation with cold satisfaction. His scaled skin gleamed under the ship's lights as he turned to his second-in-command. "Another simple conquest," he said in the harsh Draconian language. "These humans fled before we even engaged them. Primitive creatures, just as our scouts." Reported. His second-in-command nodded. "Shall we begin the resource extraction, Commander?" "Yes. Prepare the mining vessels. Once we secure their Mars colony, we will move on to their home world." Neither of them noticed the small signal being transmitted from the supposedly abandoned colony below. But Major Paul Bennett, hidden deep in the tunnel system with 5,000 soldiers, received it clearly. The Draconians had taken the bait. "All units prepare," Bennett ordered. "They're setting up exactly where we wanted them." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Maria Garcia, leading Fighter Squadron Wasp, received her own signal from Colonel Peterson's command ship, hidden on the far side of Mars. "This is it, Wasps," she said to her pilots. "The enemy fleet is in position. Move into attack formation and prepare for my mark." 30 small, nimble fighters emerged from the debris field of Phobos. They were barely visible against the darkness of space, painted black and running with minimal power. The Draconian battleships focused on the planet below did not detect them. On his command ship, Colonel Peterson watched the operation unfold through secure feeds. Beside him, Dr. Olivia Russell monitored the enemy shield systems. "The fluctuation pattern is holding," she reported. 73 seconds between weak points, just as we predicted." Peterson nodded and opened a channel to Garcia's squadron. "Lieutenant, you have tactical command. Initiate Operation Sting on my mark." He paused, looking at the timer on Russell's screen. 3, 2, 1, mark. Garcia's fighters accelerated suddenly, engines flaring as they raced toward the nearest Draconian battleship. The enemy detected them immediately but seemed unconcerned. The tiny human vessels appeared to be no threat to their massive shields. "Primary target acquired," Garcia announced, her voice calm despite the danger. "All pilots synchronize attack timers. Hit them in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now." All 30 fighters fired simultaneously. Their weapons were not traditional missiles or lasers, but specialized electromagnetic pulse devices designed by Dr. Russell. The pulses struck the Draconian shields at precisely the moment of weakness. For a second, nothing seemed to happen. Then the shield around the Draconian battleship flickered and failed. "Shields down," Garcia shouted. "Second wave, hit the propulsion systems." A dozen fighters swept in, firing conventional weapons at the now exposed engines of the battleship. Explosions bloomed along the massive hull. The ship began to drift, its power systems failing. On the Draconian command vessel, Kralthax roared in shock. "Impossible! How did they penetrate our shields?" He slammed a clawed hand on his control panel. "All ships destroy those fighters." But the human vessels were already retreating. moving too quickly for the larger Draconian ships to target effectively. And now they had a bigger problem. The battleship that had been disabled was drifting directly toward another Draconian vessel. The collision damaged both ships, creating a chain reaction of explosions. At that same moment, on the Martian surface, Major Bennett's forces emerged from hidden entrances throughout the Valles Marineris settlement. The Draconian ground troops, caught completely by surprise, found themselves under attack from all sides. "Push them back to their landing zone," Bennett ordered as he led a squad through the main settlement plaza. "Don't let them regroup." The Draconians fought fiercely, but they were disorganized. They had expected to find an abandoned colony, not a carefully planned ambush. Their standard tactics failed against the human soldiers who used the terrain they knew intimately to their advantage. In orbit, Garcia's squadron regrouped for another attack run. "Second target identified," she reported. "All fighters. Same. Approach. Wait for the shield fluctuation." This time, the Draconians were ready. They adjusted their formations, bringing multiple weapon systems to bear on the approaching human fighters. Energy beams cut through space, destroying 3 human vessels before they could get into position. "Evasive maneuvers," Garcia called. "Don't break formation, but stay alive." Despite the increased resistance, the remaining fighters managed to time their attack perfectly. Another Draconian ship lost its shields, and the follow-up strike disabled its weapons systems. On the surface, Bennett's troops had pushed the Draconian landing force back to their ships, but the aliens had called for reinforcements. A second wave of landing craft was descending through the thin Martian atmosphere. "They're bringing in heavy units," Bennett reported to Peterson. "We need support." Peterson had anticipated this. "Commander Miller, your squadrons are cleared to engage. Target those landing ships." Miller's voice came through the communication system. "Copy that, Colonel. Hammer Squadron with me. Let's clean up the sky." 40 more human fighters swept down from orbit, intercepting the Draconian landing craft. The battle over Mars became chaotic as explosions lit up the red sky. Back on the command ship, Peterson received an unexpected report. "Colonel, we've cornered a high-ranking Draconian officer. He appears to be the ground commander." This was an opportunity Peterson hadn't dared hope for. "Capture him if possible. We need intelligence." After 3 hours of intense fighting, the battle began to turn decisively in humanity's favor. 3 Draconian battleships had been disabled, and their landing forces on Mars were in retreat. More importantly, Major Bennett's team had successfully captured the Draconian ground commander, Kralthax. Watching his carefully planned invasion crumble, made a decision that no Draconian commander had made in centuries. "All ships withdraw," he ordered. "Retreat beyond the system's edge and regroup. We need reinforcements." As the remaining Draconian ships began to pull away, cheers erupted throughout the human forces. Miller's and Garcia's squadrons formed up to ensure the enemy truly retreated. While on the surface, Bennett secured the captured commander. The alien, later named Vex by his human captors, was the first Draconian ever taken alive by any species. As he was brought before Colonel Peterson, he showed no fear, only confusion. "How did you defeat us?" Vex asked in his own language, which the translation systems struggled to interpret. "Your technology is primitive. Your vessels are small. It makes no sense." Peterson studied the alien carefully before responding. "We don't fight like other species you've conquered. We don't follow patterns or rules of engagement. We adapt, we improvise, and we never, ever give up." The news of humanity's victory spread quickly back to Earth. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Draconian assault force had been defeated. The cost had been high: 17 fighters lost, hundreds of soldiers killed on the ground. But Mars remained in human hands. More importantly, the galaxy was about to learn that the Draconians were not invincible after all. News of the human victory at Mars spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Draconians tried to hide their defeat, but the truth found its way through subspace communications channels. Many species had developed secret ways to share information during their centuries of oppression. 2 months after the Battle of Mars, A small, unmarked ship entered the solar system. Earth's defense systems detected it immediately, but the vessel transmitted a special code, one that had been provided by the captured Draconian commander, Vex. "It's not a Draconian design," reported the officer monitoring Earth's early warning system. "It's smaller, and the energy signature is different." Director Dawson ordered the ship to be escorted to the lunar base, where it could be met safely, away from Earth. He traveled there personally, along with Colonel Peterson and Susan Kelly, Earth's chief diplomat. The ship landed gracefully in the lunar hangar. Its sleek design suggested advanced technology. Though different from the Draconian vessels humans had encountered, the airlock opened, revealing a tall, slender being with blue-tinted skin and large, expressive eyes. "I am Zaltor," the alien said through a translation device. "Ambassador of the Arturian Confederacy, I come seeking alliance with the humans, who defeated the Draconians." Susan Kelly stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in despite her surprise. "Welcome to our solar system, Ambassador Zaltor. I am Susan Kelly, representing Earth." The Arturian bowed slightly. "Your victory has created ripples throughout the galaxy, Diplomat Kelly. For 7 centuries, my people have lived under Draconian rule. No species has ever defeated them in battle until now." Over the next few hours, Zaltor shared information that changed humanity's understanding of the galaxy. The Draconians had ruled over hundreds of worlds for thousands of years. Their empire spanned nearly a third of the Milky Way, with thousands of species living as slaves or second-class citizens. The Draconians maintained control through fear, Zaltor explained, as they sat in the lunar base's conference room. "They destroy any civilization that resists them. After watching so many worlds burn, the rest of us learn to submit. But you've managed to come here without their knowledge," Colonel Peterson noted. "That suggests you already have some form of resistance." Zaltor's large eyes blinked slowly. "We have networks, small groups who share information, who preserve our history and culture. But never before have we dared to imagine actual rebellion." "Until now," Dawson said, understanding dawning on his face. "Until now," Zaltor agreed. "Humans have given the galaxy something it had lost: hope." The Arturian ambassador provided valuable intelligence about Draconian fleet movements and communication systems. The Draconians, enraged by their defeat at Mars, were gathering a much larger force for a second attack on Earth. "They call it the Human Extermination Fleet," Zaltor said grimly. "Supreme Commander Kralthax has taken personal command. They will arrive in approximately 3 of your Earth months." Peterson studied the data with growing concern. "This force is at least 10 times larger than what we faced at Mars. Even with what we've learned, we can't hope to defeat them directly." "Perhaps you don't need to," Zaltor suggested. "The Draconians' focus on Earth has created opportunities elsewhere." The plan that emerged from those discussions was bold and dangerous. Earth would prepare its defenses, but also send advisors to help other species organize resistance movements. If multiple systems rose up simultaneously, the Draconians would be forced to divide their attention. Over the following weeks, small teams of human military advisors secretly traveled to various worlds throughout the Draconian Empire. They carried with them tactical knowledge, encryption technology, and most importantly, proof that the mighty Draconians could be defeated. Captain William Harris led one such team to the Centauri system, where the native species had been loyal subjects of the Draconian Empire for centuries. At least that's what the Draconians believed. In reality, the Centauri had been quietly preparing for an opportunity like this. "Your shield disruption technology is impressive," said Renlo, the Centauri resistance leader, as Harris demonstrated the device on a small scale. "But our ships are constantly monitored by Draconian overseers." Harris smiled. "Then we won't use ships, at least not at first." The Centauri were natural engineers, with 4 arms and extraordinary fine motor control. Once Harris showed them the principles behind the shield disruptors, they quickly adapted the technology to their own needs. "The key is unpredictability," Harris explained during a strategy session with the Centauri leadership. The Draconians rely on fear and standard responses. They expect other species to either submit or fight in predictable ways. What do humans do differently? Asked Renlo. Everything, Harris replied. We change tactics constantly. We set traps. We sacrifice pieces to win the game. We use the enemy's strength against them. Back on Earth, Susan Kelly was coordinating the growing interstellar resistance network. Her office in the Alliance headquarters had become the hub of a complex web of communications with dozens of alien species. The Draconians have never had to fight a war on multiple fronts, she explained to Director Dawson during their daily briefing. Their entire military strategy is based on overwhelming force against a single target. Dawson nodded. And now they'll have to deal with rebellions, popping up across their empire, all using different tactics. Exactly. The Myconids in the Proxima system are using their natural camouflage abilities to sabotage Draconian supply lines. The Voldarians are hacking their communication systems. The Centauri are targeting their power stations. The captured Draconian, Commander Vex, had become an unexpected asset. After weeks of questioning, he had begun to show signs of genuine curiosity about humans. Your species makes no sense, he told Colonel Peterson during one of their regular conversations. You are physically weaker than us. Your technology is less advanced. Yet you fight with such creativity. Peterson leaned forward. That's because we've been fighting ourselves for thousands of years. War is terrible, but it taught us to adapt. Draconians have not faced a true military challenge in over 2,000 years, Vex admitted. Our tactics have not changed because they have not needed to change. Until now, Peterson said, echoing the words that had been spoken with Zaltor months earlier. Vex was silent for a long moment. Your resistance will still fail. The extermination fleet is like nothing you have faced before. Maybe, but we're not fighting alone anymore. Just as the human advisors had spread throughout the galaxy, so too had the Draconian Empire begun to experience unprecedented problems. Supply ships disappeared, communication relays failed, outposts reported strange equipment malfunctions. At first, the Draconians responded with their usual brutality, executing civilians on worlds where resistance was suspected. But this only strengthened the resolve of the oppressed species. For the first time, they had seen that their masters could be defeated. On Centauri Prime, Captain Harris watched as the Resistance made its first major move. Using the shield disruption technology, Centauri operatives disabled the defenses of the main Draconian base on their world. Within hours, the entire Draconian presence on the planet had been captured or destroyed. Send the signal, Renlo ordered, his voice trembling with emotion. Let the others know that Centauri is free. The message that went out was simple. The light returns after darkness. The stars are ours again. It was the first of many such messages. World after world began to rise up, using tactics learned from human advisors. The Draconian Empire, which had stood unchallenged for millennia, suddenly found itself fighting dozens of different enemies, each using different strategies. When the human extermination fleet finally arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, Supreme Commander Kral Thax received disturbing news. Half of the support fleet he had been counting on had been diverted to deal with rebellions in core Draconian territories. These humans have spread their poison throughout our empire, he snarled to his officers. We will crush them first, then deal with the others. But Earth was ready, and now it was not alone. As the massive Draconian fleet approached, signals arrived from a dozen different alien civilizations. They were sending ships, not many and not large, but enough to show that humanity had allies in the coming battle. The greatest fight in human history was about to begin. 3 years after the first Draconian ship entered Earth's solar system, the combined forces of the Galactic Resistance gathered for their most daring mission. The human vessel, Defiance, commanded by Admiral Samantha Miller, led a fleet of ships from 24 formerly subjugated species. Their target, Draconia itself, the homeworld of the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years. This isn't just about human survival anymore, Miller told the assembled fleet commanders during their final briefing. This is about freedom for every species that has lived under draconian oppression. Dr. Olivia Russell had developed a new weapon based on her shield disruption technology. This device could disable the massive defense system that protected the draconian homeworld, but it had to be delivered directly to the central control complex on the planet's surface. "We'll create a diversion in orbit," Colonel Peterson explained, pointing to a holographic map. "Meanwhile, a small team will land near the central complex and plant the device." The battle began as the Allied fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel near Draconia. Hundreds of draconian warships moved to intercept them, but years of fighting against human tactics had weakened their forces. Many of their best ships and commanders had been lost trying to contain rebellions across their empire. Still, the battle was brutal. Earth lost nearly half its remaining ships and several Allied species suffered devastating casualties. Yet the plan worked. While the main fleet engaged the draconian defenses, Peterson led a small team to the surface. The team included representatives from various species: Lieutenant Garcia from Earth, Renlo from the Centauri, and Zaltor himself, representing the Arturians. Each brought unique skills that proved vital during their mission. Fighting their way through draconian security forces, they reached the central complex. Peterson activated Russell's device as enemy soldiers closed in around them. "This is for every world you've conquered, every civilization you've crushed," he said as the planetary defense system began to collapse. With their defenses neutralized, the draconian leadership faced a choice they had never considered: surrender or annihilation. For the first time in millennia, the Draconian Supreme Council sued for peace. The terms were harsh but fair. The Draconian Empire would be disbanded. All conquered worlds would be freed. A new Galactic Council would be formed, with representatives from all species, including the Draconians, who would now have to earn their place as equals rather than conquerors. 1 year later, the new council established its headquarters on a neutral world. Ambassador Susan Kelly, representing Earth, addressed the first gathering. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," she said, looking around at the diverse assembly of beings from across the galaxy. "We didn't just fight to survive, we fought to create a galaxy where no species lives in fear of another." Among the delegates was Vex, now representing a changed draconian society. He approached Admiral Miller after the ceremony. "You have transformed the galaxy," he said. "For millennia, we believed strength came from instilling fear. You showed us that true strength comes from inspiring hope." A saying spread throughout the freed worlds in the years that followed. The galaxy lived in fear until humans fought back. It was humanity's unpredictability, their refusal to accept defeat, and their willingness to ally with former enemies that had changed the fate of the galaxy forever. The stars would no longer be a place of terror, but a frontier of possibility for all species to explore together.